And the first one is titled r/MaliciousCompliance. HOA mega entitled Karen constantly parks on my private property driveway, dares me to tow her, and claims HOA gave her permission to park wherever she wants because she is an HOA enforcement officer. So I'm a longtime homeowner in a neighborhood that is mostly relaxed and peaceful. I'm a laid-back kind of guy, and the only time that people really hear anything from me is when I am outside with my smoker or during football season. But then again, around here football season has a tendency to make everybody a little loud and rowdy. I like 99% of my neighbors, but there's one lady that had to go and ruin that perfect score for everyone. So she is a Karen and her personality does not match the tone of everybody else that lives here. She is extremely uptight and got worse when she somehow ended up on the HOA board. Rules went from existing mainly on paper to being seen as the law by her. She calls herself an HOA enforcement officer, and I wish that it was a joke. She really calls herself that and thinks it makes her seem cool. She also thinks that being a board member means that she's untouchable, like a queen. She was not just a Karen, she was some kind of mega Karen. She also is probably the loudest person in the neighborhood despite always arguing with people that they need to be quieter. We cannot help that sometimes football pumps everybody up, and she happens to be the only person around that hates it. Very hypocritical to try and threaten people with noise violations, but invite her extended family over who are screaming at 1 AM. So I got a private driveway with my home that can fit a few cars since it loops around since my garage is at the back of the house. Karen and her family regularly park there despite me trying everything to stop them nicely, talking to them, putting up a sign, but it didn't matter. Karen insisted that it was allowed to use private driveways as overflow parking for so-called official HOA business, which was total crap. It was just her family not wanting to park blocks away and walk. So I got a private driveway with my home that can fit a few cars since it loops around since my garage is at the back of the house. Karen and her family regularly park there despite me trying everything to stop them nicely, talking to them, putting up a sign, but it didn't matter. Karen insisted that it was allowed to use private driveways as overflow parking for so-called official HOA business, which was total crap. It was just her family not wanting to park blocks away and walk. The first time I saw Karen parking a car in my driveway, I tried to speak to her. Me, hey, this is my driveway. Karen, I'm HOA enforcement. I can park anywhere I need to for safety purposes. Me, I cannot have you blocking my driveway. Karen, call a tow truck then. See what happens. They will see the sticker on my car and leave it be. Maybe charge you for wasting their time. I dare you to try and pull that kind of stunt. I didn't know the exact rules with all of that, so I didn't call for a tow truck at first. Karen was even laughing with her family about me raging out. Even though I was totally calm the entire time. A big guy does not instantly mean aggressive, but I guess to Karen it does. By the way, I want to make it clear that these are stickers she made herself. They didn't even look professional, a total amateur job that wouldn't fool anyone. She made this a habit of parking in my driveway and even got stickers for her extended family's cars saying the same HOA enforcement crap. I had looked into the bylaws to find that there was no such rule that would let anybody park in a private driveway, even the HOA board members. I wanted to wait though to come up with a plan of retaliation. I know some of you would think I should tow the car now or just call the cops and let them deal with it. Down here, people tend to handle problems themselves. Usually that means working it out between the people having the problem, but in more serious cases it could call for some fighting back. I've seen two guys literally fight it out over an argument, and after they were both bruised and bloody, they were laughing and the problem had been solved. It might sound weird to people who are not around here, but it strangely works. Now, I was not about to start a physical fight against Karen though. I don't hit women and she would never agree to a physical fight to work out our problems anyway. Speaking to her was the only civil thing I could do, and that obviously was not working. After that first time I noticed that whenever her family showed up, it was not only my driveway getting issues, she was blocking sidewalks, mailboxes and some cars going up onto the curbs and lawns, even from her family that just didn't seem to care. I spoke to other neighbors since we were all friendly and found they were also sick and tired of the crap Karen was pulling here. They tried to speak to her too with no greater success. She seemed to think it was a bit of a game, parking in the most inconvenient spots possible and just pointing out that it was HOA approved. I had a plan, but the hardest part was just going to need to wait. So all this started in the summer, and by the time September was rolling around, I was getting extremely sick of it all. If she wanted to dismiss complaints and even warnings from people, then I was gonna get the best revenge I could think of. I waited until Thanksgiving was coming around, thinking it would be the perfect time for some revenge. A big holiday, offices closed, and also something else. I heard Karen and her family were planning after dinner to swarm the stores for Black Friday shopping. With it being a bit more rural out there weren't any buses running or ways to get to the stores outside of driving, maybe a bike or something. I was dreaming about getting her towed and getting my revenge. Nobody else wanted to really confront her out of fear about fines or what she could do with her power of the HOA. On the morning of Thanksgiving, I was ready and even wanted to offer one last warning that I knew she would not even take. Me, hey, don't forget that I don't like people parking in my driveway, I really need it tonight. Yeah, the comment was more bait than a real warning, but I knew she would take the bite. Karen, I don't care what you like. I have a lot of people coming over and we need it for HOA business. Literally, did she think that anybody believed her crap about it being HOA related? Well, anyway, we all knew that she was just hosting for Thanksgiving. Maybe being that delusional is enjoyable to her. By the afternoon, I had about 4 cars parked in my driveway and another car just flat out blocking it. Everybody was inside for dinner and obviously not paying attention to things happening a couple doors down. I called a tow company that I'd already called ahead of time, asking if they worked in my area on Thanksgiving. At first, they were not sure, but I told them that I was almost sure that I would have a bunch of cars for them to tow. Since I gave them advance notice, they said they could make it work. They only had 1 truck available because, again, more rural areas, and one by one though, the cars were hooked up and hauled off. I could hear music from Karen's house from outside, so I knew they were focused on that and their dinner and wine. Not a thought to look outside to see that anything might be going on. I had a few neighbors that did notice and wanted to know what was going on here. I told them and got some laughs and offers for some food. I was not having a party here, but neighbors were generous with leftovers. I ate a plate outside, not wanting to miss a thing. Eventually, Karen and her family did leave her house to get in their cars to go and shop. Honestly, I don't think any of them were planning on driving sober anyway, but I guess that didn't matter. They showed up to their cars gone, and Karen started screaming at me. Karen, what did you do with our cars? Me, I had them towed off of my private property. Karen, you cannot do that. I'm HOA enforcement and I approved of them being there. Me, not only could I do it, but it was extremely easy. You can try calling the tow company to get them back, but the office might be closed until Monday. Holiday weekend and all that. I was not hiding who took the cars and flat out gave her the number to call the tow company. More entertainment for me. It was on speaker since she wanted to show me how I was gonna be in trouble. They explained that the cars were on private property. She was holding the phone so tightly after failing to get the cars brought back, I thought it would snap. The family members were furious, some at me, some at Karen, for telling them it was a safe spot to park their cars. With all the fighting going on, I felt like it was time to go inside. I did say one last thing to Karen though. Me, happy Thanksgiving by the way. At least you saved up money for shopping that you can use to get the cars back. I think eventually they did pay the fees to get the cars back, but it was too late for Karen's reputation. Neighbors were talking and making fun of her. Even teenagers were making random jokes to each other like, "Oh no, don't tow my bike." Typical kid stuff. The rest of the HOA board actually stepped in at this point after being quiet the entire time. I thought it would be to tell me off for my retaliation, but instead of contacting them or trying to solve things in a civil matter. They wanted nothing from me though, which was extremely nice since I felt like I could have gotten reamed out for being uncivil or something. They were out for blood and that blood was Karen's. They told her that she was giving the HOA board a bad name and now everybody was making fun of them. The jokes were about Karen mainly, but since the HOA kept coming up in them, it was giving them a bad rap for no reason. They tried to get Karen to send apologies and promised to never do it again, along with stopping the whole HOA enforcement crap she had been pulling the entire time. Karen flat out refused to admit that she was in the wrong or to make any kind of amends. She was forced to totally step down, so now she had literally nothing. She really wanted to be a mega Karen and never admit that she was in the wrong. I plan on posting a cheeky sign next year outside of my driveway saying, "Tow trucks on standby," or something like that. Maybe somebody here has a cool idea. I'm not the most creative person in the world. In my defense though, for those who think that I maybe went too far, is that Karen did dare me to try and have her towed back when it all started. However, maybe she should have been more specific on the timing if she didn't want Thanksgiving ruined for her entire family. I think the HOA as a whole learned a lesson to keep better track of people that might be going rogue, instead of waiting until it hits a boiling point. They should have stopped Karen the minute she started this HOA enforcement garbage. I don't feel bad for them, since they allowed it to get this far. Eventually people will stop making fun and find a new joke. Things will return to the status quo, but for now I will enjoy her getting the verbal beatdown that she had coming to her since the first time she parked in my driveway. And the next one is titled, "You Want Me to Participate in the Weekly All Hands? No problem." And this one is a brand new story from r/MaliciousCompliance. And by the way, if you like the stories, please don't forget to click the hype button and like the video, since that would help me tremendously. So I just saw an article about Mercedes-Benz allowing team calls with a camera to their vehicles, and it reminded me of this situation. So several years ago, I worked for a small solar company that was acquired by what is essentially the Walmart of solar. We went from weekly in-person meetings on a schedule that worked for both management and staff to daily check-ins, weekly department calls, and other unnecessary regional calls and meetings. What was initially 2 to 3 short meetings per week turned into around 10 45-minute to an hour meetings per week. My responsibilities were about 20% in office, 80% field work. Some of the locations I needed to get to were an hour and plus away, and a lot of times I was crunched to get to 5 to 6 locations within the workday. For as long as I could remember, I would either skip a call if I was in the field, or I would listen and not participate, so I was on the call but could still take care of whatever tasks I needed to. I ended up getting reprimanded and told to just park and take the calls, but I needed to participate in all of them or I would be written up. So that is what I did. If a call was happening, I would find the closest parking lot, take the call, and participate. This company also scrutinized overtime and hours, so we couldn't work OT without approval. This meant if I didn't get something done, I would just head back to the office and reschedule it for the following day. My coworkers did the same, and our productivity dropped overall by about 60%. Within a month, our regional manager was in our office asking us what the F was going on, and we told her directly that we have a large region to cover and most of these calls are nonsense corporate feel-good BS. If they wanted real productivity where it was before, they needed to cut the meetings, because meetings don't improve metrics, actually being able to work does. They did cut our meetings, but it turned into a crap show when the big company fully took over. That office is now officially closed because while we had the second best metrics in the entire company, we were tired of all the BS and we all quit, and they could not replicate our quality or quantity of installations in that office. And the next one is another amazing malicious compliance / petty revenge story. And by the way, let me know in the comments where you are watching from today. This one is titled, "Hallways had lanes for students to get them to class faster." So I was a teacher at a middle school in 2014/2015 that was Title I school, meaning extremely low income and test scores. The state government actually removed all administration staff 2 years prior for the whole district, as the student outcomes were so low. The new admin came in with a micromanagement authoritarian directive to improve test scores. One of their brightest ideas was to put lanes in the hallways to manage flow and get students to classes faster. There was 3 lanes, 2 one-ways along the walls and a middle teacher-only lane. Within about 3 days, all the students were driving imaginary cars. They orderly followed one another, would let people in to merge, use turn signals, and generally was pretty fun for a few days. The teachers would direct students at intersections and played along for a bit. The flow did slow down though, as students would not pass each other and would have trouble merging into traffic around doorways. Another thing taking time was the students parking their imaginary vehicles outside the classroom. They would spend time backing them into spaces or have trouble parallel parking. The admin did not like this and really really started getting angry at the staff and students as so many kids were still tardy to class. They actively were handing out detentions and pretty angry at staff for playing along, and this really triggered the students to start getting malicious. The students couldn't cross the middle lane, so they would have to walk down long hallways and make U-turns to see their friends or get to their lockers and classrooms. They started cruising the long hallways with their tricked out imaginary lowriders. They would have shock noises even, and some of the really popular kids started a bus system where they had a schedule to pick up other students and deliver them to other classes. They would hold shoulders and move as a block. Well, sometimes the bus broke down at an intersection and blocked traffic for everyone. Drag racing started where they held up traffic and raced down the hallways. Police would pull people over and write tickets. The most annoying part was, though, students needing to leave the classroom to check on their cars to make sure no one stole it. Sometimes a student would come back from the bathroom and ask if anyone was driving a type of car as it was being towed. The disruptions in class started to get really out of control. The admin thought it was gonna be a phase and students would get bored, but the best part about school for the students turned out to be the time in between classes. Everyone was tardy constantly. Eventually the lanes, tape, were ripped up and they shortened the passing period time by 2 minutes, so students had to rush to class and couldn't spend any time in the hallways. So yeah, the cars slowly died out and the new fad was needing to use the restroom during class time because the passing period was like 3 minutes long and not enough toilets to satisfy all the students legitimately. Students were written up for needing to use the bathroom, so kids just started clogging toilets and peeing wherever. Other car things: flat tires, emergency sirens, car accidents, GPS problems, no gas, lost license, couldn't find keys, stole other kids' cars, repo cars, and towing cars. And the next one is a story from Petty Revenge called "Wanna Park Like an A-Hole? Get Trapped Like an A-Hole." So I went to the mall yesterday to go to my local Barnes & Noble. This mall's Barnes & Noble parking area is like always full, but I found a cute little spot and I parked my happy ass car in it. Well, once I finished spending a ridiculous amount of money on books I will never read, I come back to my car only to find that the car had parked next to mine, driver's side, so damn close that a child would not be able to squeeze in there. I do the old crawl in through passenger side maneuver, very annoyed, and I'm like, well, that was annoying, let me just leave. And then I realize, why should this a-hole get the pleasure of entering their car all happily when I did not? So I take a gamble that the car on their driver's side will leave before them. I'm waiting outside and I kid you not even 2 minutes later someone happy ass walks out of the Barnes & Noble, presumably with books they'll never read. He gets into the car next to a-hole car and leaves. Happy not reading to you, my friend, I love you. Also, I get back in my car and pull into the spot so close a child would once again not be able to fit through it. It took some effort to park that badly. I wait again outside, of course, and about 15 minutes of Reddit scrolling later, someone's happy smug ass walks out of the Barnes & Noble and his smugness is instantly crushed when they realize, oh no, my car is so close to this car that a child could not fit through. I smile, I could do this all day. I watch him struggle to get from the passenger side seat to the driver's seat because, yeah, I forgot to mention, this guy is not skinny and he was tall, like at least 5'11". I'm 5'2" and did the passenger to driver's seat gymnastics in under half a minute, but this guy struggled for like 3 minutes trying to get his legs to the other side. Once I see him almost done with the gymnastics, doesn't it feel nice when it happens to you, is all I'm thinking. I walk over to my car, get in and reverse out. I make sure to glance at him, smile, and then give him the finger. He looks bewildered, already enraged about this 3 minutes of struggle. Why would I flip him off? A look of realization crosses his face, and I like to think his dumbass just realized that my car was on the other side before. Think before parking like an a-hole. And yeah guys, thank you so much for watching. I will see you again tomorrow.